This is the Team Objection podcast for October 17th, 2019, episode 410, and it is time for the annual Suns preview, where we decide on the over-under if they're going to win more than 9 games.
Over.
You know, I feel pretty comfortable taking the over on that, too.
I've been burned pretty hard in the past, so I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, Shaun especially has been the most optimistic of the group, and I don't want to blame him for that, but the fact remains, we have been off on our predictions because we've just tried to see not even the best in this team, just something that wasn't the worst, and the last 8 years we've pretty much been not rewarded every single time.
Well, we had 2014, which I had really low hopes, and it turned out really good, actually, that year. We were really close to the playoffs in 2014, and then drafted Devin Booker. So overall, that was a decent year, but that's the best we've had for the last decade, so that kind of sucks.
Yeah, and we didn't even make the playoffs.
Dave, are you like clicking a pen or something? I'm sorry yeah.
Apologies.
Bad habits.
Get that away.
A nervous fidget.
Well, you're nervous because a lot's riding on this year. When you look back at the Suns, are we going to say we had a year of tanking and we have almost nothing to show for it? This year is going to tell us that in large amounts.
Well, a year, we had more than a year of tanking, essentially. I mean,
that's what I said. 10 years of tanking. Is it going to be worth? Is it going to be worth it? Now, this year isn't the end-all, be-all. Ayton's young in his career. He could still be really good, but it's not going to feel great if we have another 15-win season or something that feels like a 15-win season.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting year in the sense of I really think this is going to be one of our better teams that we've had, just kind of with some of the veterans that we've got on the team, people who filled roles a little bit better rather than just like lots of potential and let's just give them minutes to see if they can figure out that potential like we've had in the past few years. But the wins, God, I don't know where the wins are going to come from. I imagine we'll be better than the last 2 years. But where are those wins going to come from in this stacked Western Conference?
If I can take anything from preseason, which is a pretty bad starter to begin with, I think we're just going to get streaky sometimes, and we're going to have an explosion of offense. And, it's not great to rely on, but we haven't really had that in the past. We've had it from Booker, and only Booker when he carries the whole team on his back and scores 60, and everyone else scores 5. And they all get like plenty of attempts, and they still only score 5.
Mm-hmm.
But they had that game against Portland. I know it was preseason. I know it doesn't matter. But last year, you could have left the team wide open, and we wouldn't have hit that many threes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pregame warmups might not have hit that many threes.
Yeah, seriously. So I'm going to take the positives where I can find them.
I'm a little bit frustrated by the roster construction, and here's why. Our 12th man this season is probably better than our 6th or 7th of the last 3 years. The floor of talent on our roster has risen considerably. The top end is really going to be dependent on how good Booker and Ayton are. Everything else besides that doesn't really matter. So now it's like we've put a lot of functional NBA players on this team, players I would have loved to have had in the past where we had such a dearth of NBA talent. Now it's like, where do you find room for a couple of these players? Like, we signed a few different people. Like, Frank Kaminsky had a really, really good preseason. Again, preseason disclaimers. Before the preseason, I wasn't convinced he was going to get to play. Because, there's kind of a logjam there where Ayton's playing 35 minutes a night, and it seemed like Saric was penciled in as the starter. And then, I don't know what Diallo's going to do. They're going to play Oubre at the 4 sometimes alongside Bridges, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, God, does Frank Kaminsky even get on the floor? Well, now after his preseason, it seems like he has to. But then who else doesn't get minutes? Because you don't play 12 people in the NBA. Unless it's a blowout. You don't play that many. You play 9, maybe 10. If you're Mike D'Antoni, you play 4.5. You don't play 12 people, so it's like we've really boosted the roster's depth, and if injuries happen, that will come in handy. But in the regular rotation of a game, these other additions at the back end aren't going to do jack shit.
I feel like that's generally a good problem to have, and I feel like this team is probably just going to end up going, I'd say, about 10 deep. And one of my favorite Suns teams of all time, the 2010 Suns, were 10 deep in that instance. So if you have not a huge drop-off of talent, that can actually work really well because it kind of changes the look up a little bit. So, and you have some spark plugs potentially coming off the bench, like Tyler Johnson being a bench guy. I think he's so much better suited for something like that. I guess the question is going to come from, is somebody like Oubre going to be a bench guy, or is Bridges going to be a bench guy, and how they fit in where they might be used to be being starters?
Oubre almost has to be a starter, at least at this point, right? For what we're paying him.
But my hot take is that he shouldn't be.
I agree. I agree with that. He should
designed
be
as the sixth man, because of the type of player he is.
He had the third fewest passes out of drives in the NBA last season. And granted, again, preseason, I'm not going to keep making this little like asterisk on it, but like from what I watched, which was just part of one game and then most of the Denver game on Monday night, it's still the same idea. And now that there's so much passing in the starting unit with the upgrades with Rubio and Saric, the fact that Oubre is a black hole sticks out more than ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of ball movement and some good looks being generated. Even in the first quarter against Denver when we were down by like 8, there was a few different open shots that were missed. I mean, Rubio was generating some great looks for corner threes that just weren't falling. But every time Oubre got it, he would drive into 3 defenders, and sometimes he got fouled. Occasionally he made it. He had that 0 for 8 game in one of the games in the preseason. It's hard to overreact to just the preseason and some guys who are still getting to know each other. I mean, Oubre missed time in training camp because of a small injury. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know if that works on paper, where Bridges is a much more willing and able passer that would complement the starting 5 better. I don't know.
Well, and a much better just catch and shoot guy is really kind of where I think that comes in too. He is on the starting lineup. He seems to fit in perfectly with like, all right, stand over there and hit threes when we hit you with the pass.
Yeah, between Booker and Ayton, who we want taking more shots. Yeah, I mean, if he buys in, that's the question.
Yeah.
Is he going to buy into being the 6th man? If he's like a Ginobili type person, or J.R. Smith or Jamal Crawford. I don't know why I put in J.R. Smith. I was thinking Jamal Crawford.
He was a 6th man of some import for about a season and a half.
Yeah, just these guys who they like that role and they thrive on it, and we'll see.
But to Shaun's point, did you really just pay Oubre 2 years, $30 million to come off the bench after this whole Valley Boys revolution and him sort of spearheading this effort at the middle of last season when we desperately needed that infusion of talent and energy and a desire to be here? Do you then tank him on the bench? I mean, I think ultimately both him and Bridges will be on the floor in crunch time as long as that lineup doesn't get destroyed on the rebounding department.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still an ego thing for some players, and so is Oubre willing to accept that role if it's even offered? I don't know. Do you fracture team chemistry before the season even starts?
We got to start with him starting, and we'll see if we're winning games and it's successful, then it's great. If we're losing, which we will be, then maybe it's time to take a look. Even just to give it another look.
Well, we beat the optimism out of Shaun. It took 10 years, but it's
no. I
it's
mean,
gone.
no. Well, you think that we haven't gotten to
his 55 win prediction. Yeah. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah, I feel like Oubre is, and maybe I'm reading in a bit too much of the personality. Maybe he just wanted to make a good impression coming in. I feel like he's the type of guy that if you tell him he's got to go to the bench, he's like, all right, I'll show you, and he'll play even harder because he wants to show up that he should be a starter. If that makes sense. Which
can be good, but it has its problems too.
It does, but I see just the way the starting lineup could potentially be with Rubio, Booker, Bridges, Dario Saric, and Ayton. That to me seems like a good starting lineup of people who can do a lot on the court. While meanwhile, then we have the Tyler Johnsons and Kelly Oubre's and Frank Kaminsky's coming in off the bench to kind of just to be energy coming off the bench more so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also, I think, a better defender in the starting lineup with Bridges over Oubre. Because the bench unit's going to have, I don't know if Javon Carter makes this team. He's looked okay in the preseason. Defensively, I think he's solid. Offensively, he's a mess. Aaron Baines is a solid defender. Like the bench unit, Tyler Johnson's fine, decent, maybe even slightly above average for his position. There's some other decent defenders with the bench unit where then you can kind of hide somebody more like Oubre who's I think overrated as a defender. We kind of talked about this at the end of last season. Good at getting steals, but maybe not the best on-ball defender. Whereas Bridges with that unit, they already have some defense there, but who's your defenders in the starting unit? Ayton's looked a little better in the preseason. So was Booker, at least as far as effort and intensity. But those are neither of them are at least an average defender right this minute. Maybe they'll get there and the impression will change this very season. But right now, those are 2 minus defenders. Rubio's maybe above average, and Saric is maybe average. So I feel like Bridges helps the defense in the opening unit too. But again, I think Oubre still has to start the season there.
It's tough when money makes that decision for you, almost, isn't it? Like, it feels like it shouldn't, but it totally does.
In some ways, yeah. Absolutely. Ayton, how was he in the preseason?
About the same.
Aggressiveness wise, actually, I should kind of clarify what I'm looking for.
About the same.
About the same. I think he was about the same. However, I think in ways his offense is going to be better this year because he has a competent player throwing him the ball.
Sure.
There's a number of pick and rolls that I'm not going to go this far, but it almost looked like, Amari dunking off a bounce pass and a light version of that coming on a pass from Nash. Like Rubio hit him on some pick and rolls where there was just a quick little bounce pass and a dunk by Amari, which I haven't seen Ayton be able really to do that yet.
No, at all.
One of the main plays I saw, and it's too early to dive into the playbook because the Suns even said that they were sort of holding back any sets that involved Booker because they know what he can do and what he's going to do in the regular season, so they were testing other stuff. But they were basically running a 1-4-5 double pick and roll, and because of Rubio's prowess in the pick and roll, there wasn't a lot of good answers for it because Ayton could hit the 14-footer if he wasn't the one rolling. If the other big, whether it was Kaminsky or Šarić, was staying at the three-point line, they can obviously splash those shots. And with Rubio turning the corner, if the defender was on his hip, he can get to the rim where he still finishes okay. He's not a great shooter, but he finishes well. He's got good chemistry with Ayton already, and just that simple kind of basketball motion looked really crisp, and it was like, oh my God, a point guard.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God, I had almost forgotten.
Yeah.
It would be just a great dream if Rubio could hit that 20-footer consistently or pull up from three consistently. But I'm just going to be happy with what we have at the moment.
I mean, how at a minimum, how many points were we leaving on the floor easy last year? Like 10? Like every game of like an easy pass that could have been made that didn't, or a competently run fast break that we butchered.
Or even little things like trying to feed the post and missing him and making the guy come another 3 feet away from the basket, and then you lose your position.
Yeah, hitting a pocket pass for a shooter in the corner.
Exactly.
Like,
and then you take a worse shot near the end of the shot clock, and you end up having, it's not a turnover. It's maybe an okay look, but it's not the one you could have had. Yeah, I mean, it's probably something like double-digit points a game. It's mitigated really only by point Booker. If they had tried to run Booker as a traditional shooting guard with that awful array of point guards last season, it might have been even worse.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think the whole idea with Ayton is he looks smooth out there. I mean, he shot 60% from the field last year, getting no easy buckets for the most part. So if Rubio is going to spoon feed him, he might put up like a DeAndre Jordan kind of like 65% from the field season, unless his usage going up tanks his field goal percentage, or if he starts jacking threes, which he has not done in the preseason at all.
No.
After all that hullabaloo. So I mean, hopefully his defense looks a little better. He's gotten more blocked shots. I'm still not sure he's contesting as many shots as he should be. Again, in 4 games, one of which he didn't play, but he looks good. How good is he going to be? I think it's still too hard to tell.
Yeah, it's tough. I heard people can discuss this before, and it feels like one of the things you just can't teach is that aggressiveness on defense. And you can teach him footwork, you can teach him, you can just teach him defensive concepts, but you can't teach the aggressiveness or the instinct that just comes from being a good defender. And I think we're going to have to just check our expectations a bit when it comes to Ayton. He can be a good defender, especially a good perimeter defender, but around the rim, I don't think that's what it's going to be. So that's why a guy like Baines may be really helpful in spurts.
Yeah. Well, and the problem with Ayton, too, as far as expectations, is he's always going to be the guy that we took instead of Doncic. And that's always going to color it unless Doncic, hopefully he sucks this year. And
you want to hear my hot take is that I think he's going to have a bit of a sophomore slump this year.
Think so?
Is that I think that he's still going to be good, don't get me wrong. I think Trae Young is actually the one who's going to have a bigger sophomore slump. But I think that Doncic is going to kind of get figured out just a little bit by the league. He's got the height, so he'll be all right, but I think he's going to get figured out just a little bit.
And why do you think that about Trae Young?
I've never believed in Trae Young at all. His shooting is good, but I think that he might have a bit more turnovers this year than he had before, and that's really going to tank his game a bit.
He's a really good passer, though.
He is. But
all right, well, we'll see. Hot takes with David Robinson.
Hot takes.
He had 8 turnovers in a preseason game.
Uh-huh.
Again, preseason, blah, blah. But, that was in 23 minutes or something. And he had 11 assists that game, so it wasn't like it was all terrible. But, again, that's just a turnover ratio with assists that's
I would guess he's going to be streaky. He's going to have spurts where he's going to look like all NBA talent, and then he's going to have spurts where you're like, oh my god, did we screw up this pick?
I don't know what you do with him in the modern NBA because he's really not a point guard despite his passing ability. I don't think he has the acumen to run an offense for 35 minutes a night, but you can't play him at the 2. He's undersized. He would get destroyed by a lot of the bigger 2s in the league. Like, what are they going to do against the Clippers? They're going to have him guard Kawhi Leonard? Good luck.
That'll not work.
God.
But I mean, he's talented, no question. And I don't know if I agree with Dave about Doncic slipping this second season, but I'm sort of hoping he does just so people will shut up about him.
Yeah.
That's a byproduct that sucks. I hate not liking a player because everybody else won't get off his dick. But it happens sometimes, if I'm being totally honest. And then that's sort of one of those situations from last year. I'm like, okay, he's really good. Okay, Aiden's good too. You want to talk about Aiden? No? Okay.
I read an article that was like, Aiden might be not only, not the best player in this draft, which is fine, but they were saying like he might end up being the 5th, 6th, 7th best pick, and it was by a Suns writer, and I was like, come on, guys.
You gonna say that Marvin Bagley is gonna be better than him in the long run, or Wendell Carter Jr. is gonna be better in the long run?
Exactly what they said. They said Bagley had almost the same stats in less minutes, and then they were like, well, and you could argue it was against less talent because he's coming off the bench, and I was like, that's exactly what I would argue. That's a pretty big deal, but that's.
Yeah, I see a lot of hype for Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously, but he had some decent numbers and a good stretch last season where you're like, okay, I see where the hype is. Wendell Carter averaged 7 points a game last year and 42% shooting. And sure, he's a young talent with a lot of upside, but I'm like, can we slow down just a little bit when a guy is already doing it against starters at a 16-10 clip at this level?
With the consistency that he's doing it too, I think a lot of people overlook Aiton's consistency. He is going out there pretty much every single night and putting up 16 and 10. It's not like he's having a 6-point game and then a 30-point game the next game. He's doing essentially the same thing every night as a rookie.
I'm not sure what people expect.
Yeah.
What do they want from him? 25 and 13?
I mean, it'd be great, but
I don't even know if his best case scenario puts up those numbers. Maybe.
Yeah.
In the modern NBA especially. I mean, it's almost like they want him to be Shaq. And Shaq was one of the best players of all time in a very different era, and I don't know what they want from him.
Yeah, it's going to be, you can't win until Doncic it cools off and he's not the new hot thing, because you're the team that drafted Sam Bowie, basically, which is totally a false equivalency, but that's how the way people see it.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wonder what his career trajectory would look like. Right now, only 1 year in, if we had the second pick and had taken him after Luka, would fans be this hard on him if he had been the number 2 pick?
I don't think so at all. I think they'd be saying wow, you got a great deal.
Yep.
Yeah, you didn't get him, but you couldn't have picked him. He was off the board, so you took the next best player, and he's doing great. He's doing awesome.
Yeah.
But instead, I mean, the Trae Young thing would be a factor, but I think it's mostly about Luka.
I actually am kind of more sick of people talking about Trae Young when he had an exciting season, but again, undersized guy that I think is going to get figured out.
Let me ask this, because I know we're all biased because we're Suns fan, but where's the outrage for the Hawks?
Yeah.
They had Luka and traded him. And Trae looks like he's pretty good too, but where's the hate for them? They could have taken Luka just the same as the Suns and did for another team.
Where's the hate on the Kings for Trae taking Bagley?
Yeah, it's the same situation, a big instead of Luka.
Yep. But no, the Suns are the one that gets shit on.
Because they had DeAndre Fox? Because, Luka handles the ball, but he's not a point guard.
Yep.
I don't understand it. That's one of those things where I don't really buy the idea that there's all this bias against Phoenix, but there are definitely times where it seems like there is.
Do you think Booker's going to have just I think he's already had his coming out party, but do you think he's going to have his second coming out party?
No.
All-Star game, All-Star selection type of year?
Yeah.
No. Well, let me clarify. I think he actually could be an all-star if the Suns are in their best scenario this season. Yeah. But I think it would be with the same numbers as last year. People are predicting 35 and 8 assists a game for him, and I'm like, why?
I mean, sign me up, but I don't. Yeah.
You think he's going to take more shots than last year? Because I don't.
I don't think he's going to score a lot more. I think this could open up his passing, though, because I think less attention on him to do everything on the defensive end it could mean more points and it could mean more assists. I don't think to the clip of 30 and 8.
I do think it's possible. Don't get me wrong. He could certainly have another gear yet in him. To me, I would be happy with like a 25 and 5 assists per game kind of year if it meant his percentages went up and he was more efficient, and if he was even close to average on the defensive end. That would be a huge year for me, and it would mean the Suns are playing well and he might be getting all-star consideration.
That's exactly what I see as being really a best-case scenario, is that he's not an awful defender anymore. His percentages are going up, and people aren't thinking of him as the ball chucker who scored 70 points and was happy about losing while doing it. That perception, I think, is going to be what helps Booker the most, because right now he's so polarizing with so many people. And I think if we can win some games, and if he's scoring 25 on good percentages and we're winning, like, everyone's going to be seeing like, wow, he is actually really good. Maybe Donovan Mitchell isn't that good. Sorry, I'm so bitter.
I would be more. I don't know. I would. There's a part of me, except for their athleticism, where I would be more worried about the Russell Westbrook and James Harden matchup. Whereas Booker, I don't know why I'm comparing these, totally unequivalent, but like I get really excited thinking about Rubio and Booker and the idea of Westbrook and Harden. Like that would make me nervous as a Houston fan. I think they're going to get by with their athleticism. I think they're going to get completely exposed in the playoffs.
Yeah, I can see that happening exactly to Houston, but
if they make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which we'll get to.
Can we restate how stacked the West is right now?
I think the Rockets will, but it's by no means a shoo-in for them.
No, it's incredible, the West right now.
Yeah. So I mean, I think there is a possibility that Booker could go ham. And I don't even think it's him going for 30 a game on a regular basis and the Suns winning are not necessarily mutually exclusive. But I think when I run it through my head, if he scores 30 a game, I feel like more often than not, it's not a good thing for us.
Here's a flip side question: is if Booker is scoring 25 a game on poor percentages and we're losing, is this the season the fans start to turn on him?
Yes.
I would say so too, which I struggle with still. I mean, I guess if he is kind of being a black hole on offense and not playing within the flow of the offense, then I could see people really turning on him.
Fans have already turned on him, so it would be nothing new. I would say more if he actually plays well on good percentages and we're winning. I think that would convert some of the fans who have since lost faith in him.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it from a lot of Suns fans, basically just calling him, a stat guy and, good stats, bad team type of guy. And it's weird seeing that from Suns fans when it's like, have you seen what he has been around him? It's not really a choice that's what he's been. So
it's frustrating. But I would challenge you to think of like guys on historic losing teams that do have a lot of the fan support. It's like, you're losing, so you got to find a scapegoat. No one's good, because if they were, you wouldn't be losing. Like, it just fosters this negativity. If we start winning, that's all going to go away.
Yep.
I'll give you
fix everything.
I'll give you 150 million reasons why fans have turned on him.
Well,
because it's one thing when you're making $3 million on a rookie contract and you're 21 years old, but apparently when you're 22 and you get a nice extension to your deal that you've absolutely earned, now it flips the switch because now you're overpaid. Nobody deserves that much money. Athletes shouldn't be making that. Teachers, firefighters, blah, blah, wham, wham, bitch, bitch. But I think that's definitely going to be one of the battles he's going to have to fight if the Suns are not good this season, is that the perception is going to hinge just on his contract, even if he's almost the same player as he was before.
What's the Venn diagram of crossing of those people who said that he deserved the contract and are now bitching about him? Like, how much is the crossover on that one?
I mean, there's a handful of people that would say he's not a max player, but they would argue that about a lot of players. Yeah. And the argument's dumb because, I mean, yeah, like John Wall probably shouldn't be making $40 million a year. Not as a, like, nobody should be, just in an NBA salary cap perspective. That's way too much fucking money. Mm-hmm. But the fact remains that's how it works. If you want to retain top talent, you're going to have to usually reach for them with a max extension. So, like, yeah, Booker probably shouldn't be jumping from $3 million to $30 million per over the course of this deal, but that's the way the NBA salary is structured right now. Other than that, I don't know who could possibly say anything about it. Like,
Yeah.
is Devin Booker a max player? I sure hope so. Right this minute, probably not, but maybe.
Well,
But there's like 5 max players in the NBA by that standard that they want to set. So
Yeah,
who
that's
cares?
what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other argument of like, should they really have a maximum salary? And if they just let the market decide it, that almost would fix this problem, wouldn't it? We wouldn't have that max term thrown around anymore.
Only
I
if
think
you
that would actually help perception a lot.
Only if you still have a salary cap, which is
Yeah,
difficult
exactly.
to do without max deals of some kind, because then
Yeah.
you can blow $60 million on LeBron, but then what?
Yeah.
Because the league would then push for like, well, maybe we don't have a salary cap anymore, but you can't do that because that's when LA and New York and all the other teams in major markets go crazy.
Does baseball still have no salary cap?
Correct. They have a luxury tax, though.
Yeah, so there is a tax that can hammer some people on the high end, so there's a little bit of leveling, but definitely not a hard cap. No.
yes,
I've seen a thing on a couple different sites, Bright Side of the Sun being one of them, where people are trying to compare Booker to other teams and other players that have had bad situations and when their first All-Star appearance was and or their first playoff appearance. And even that I find to be flawed in some ways because they're usually doing it against like the top 50 NBA players of all time. And I'm like, is this kid who was drafted out of Kentucky not having been a starter with the number 15 pick really expected to be a top 50 NBA player? Would you even in your most giant expectations of the future be willing to say that Devin Booker is going to be a top 50 of all time player? I would love it if it were the case, but that seems to be the comparison. Like, well, no other team has gone through what Devin Booker has. He can't possibly be that good because no other star has led his team to this kind of a record in the first 4 seasons. And I'm like, if you're only comparing it to the 50 best players of all time, then I guess. But I don't know if that's a fair comparison either because Devin Booker could be a top 5 player in the current NBA and maybe not be top 50 all time. It's just a stupid, flawed comparison to me.
Yeah.
Well, it's basically if you're not the best, you're terrible, which is just a stupid thought process.
How many do we even have in the current NBA that are top 50 all time?
Depending on what happens with Giannis, 6.
4?
Yeah.
Curry, LeBron, Durant, probably Anthony Davis, probably Giannis, maybe
Maybe
Kawhi Leonard.
Are we going to put
Yeah.
Steph Curry in there?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you did. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I
okay,
did.
yeah. I agree. I thought you missed it.
I put Curry in. Well, okay, LeBron's first, but like as far
Yeah.
as because a lot of that's measured by impact on the game, and no, there's
Yeah.
zero question. Curry's a top 50 player of all time right now, regardless
Oh, yeah.
of what else he does.
For sure.
He might
Yeah.
go. He might end up top 10 by the time he's done if he can keep up these kind of numbers for 5, 6, 7 more years.
This season might really cement that legacy for him, but
He might go nuts. But yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like, that's the benchmark. If you're not one of the best of all time, then yeah, I guess Devin Booker's screwed because
Yeah.
that's an unrealistic expectation of him.
exactly.
If he had been drafted number 1, like maybe that's supposed to be the expectation for Ayton. If Ayton goes through 4 seasons of awful losing, then maybe that's a conversation we'll have to have in a few years because he's a number 1 pick. But that shouldn't be on Book's shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let's do best and worst case scenario. What's better to start with?
Do the best case scenario?
If we want to be optimists, like we usually do, probably put worst first.
All right.
All right.
Because that way we end on the higher note, we try and settle back on our prediction, and we leave a better taste in the viewer's mouth.
So like
All
worst realistic. Like
Pessimist
not like
Shaun, you go first.
one weekend Rubio pulls a Trevor Ariza, demands a trade. No, I mean it just doesn't click, and Rubio gets exposed because he can't shoot, and our offense doesn't click. We're trying that 0.5 second offense. Every coach we've had for the last like 5 years has tried a fast tempo, like lots of passes offense. It's the personnel. Are they going to be able to finally pull it off?
Don't worry,
Oh,
Dave's
I
just calling back in. We're doing it live.
I thought Dave was just sitting there silent.
No,
listening
it's
to my
fine.
great point.
I think the recording's still going, and Dave, the video hasn't updated yet. Let's see if that fixes.
I'm very upset.
Okay, Dave is back. Don't mind the fact the video just jumped. The audio will sound fine. It's not a big deal. To Shaun's point, I think the chemistry is the big issue here. So far, everybody's saying the right things, and people seem to legitimately want to be here, and they're working well together. That happens to every team in the preseason and in training camp. Everybody talks about how they're going to do things the right way, and we're going to do this, and we have high expectations, we're going to grow together, and it's all a bunch of Earl Watson bullshit. at the end of the day, the question is going to be how well does this actually mesh on the court. The difference to me with this 0.5 thing that Monty is instilling is it's not necessarily about more passes as much as it is quick decision making.
Yeah.
And we have a roster that's a little bit more tailored for that. How well, I guess, is going to determine how well we do this season. How well they can pick this up. But it's more about, okay, NBA defenses can be exploited, but you have to do it quickly because if you give them time to rotate back, your advantage is gone.
Mm-hmm.
In principle, I like it. We've probably said that about 6 times in the last 5 seasons about different ideas or players or coaches, but I think we might be onto something here. I hope so, but this is not the optimistic side, so I'm with you. If it all implodes, I think they win 22 games is the worst-case scenario, which is still an improvement over last season, but relative to expectation, that will start riots among this fan base.
Yeah. I see. The worst-case scenario really comes down to either injuries occur and then we just get derailed. But that's not even really worst case because it's not a fundamental failure. But the fundamental failure comes from we think we have a bunch of high IQ players that are out there, and those high IQ players turn into they just want to get their numbers, like because they're on relatively shorter contracts. Like Oubre thinks he's superstar and can't handle coming off the bench if that's what ends up happening. Or Mikal Bridges can't figure out his shot. Booker can't play within a team concept and still wants to shoot 30 times a game and his percentages go down. All in all, those things are what's going to derail this team. And Ayton is kind of just content with getting his 16 and 10 and not improving.
That's my thing is if he doesn't get – he needs to look to be on offense, And he doesn't need – we talked about this already. It doesn't need to be a huge difference, but, like, he needs to look – to be active. And he had some nights where he just would play cleanup and he wasn't engaged at all. And that I know that was the offense's fault as much as it was his, but like we need that to not happen again.
Even against Denver in that last preseason game, he had I think like 10 points and a few rebounds and a block in the first quarter and he vanished in the second.
Yeah.
I mean, he was out for maybe the first 3-4 minutes of the quarter, but even when he came back in, it was like a different player had taken over his body. It was basically the Space Jam corollary. He was a superstar, and then he was nothing. And yeah, Jokic is a really tough cover and makes a lot of people look foolish. So it'd be dangerous to base it on one game. It's just emblematic of what you talked about last season, which is basically either for quarters or stretches of a quarter or even entire games, he vanished. He didn't have to be locked in every single minute of every single game, but he can't disappear like that on a regular basis, or the Suns are not going to be good enough.
Yeah, it's tough to see Ayton doing that, though, and just it's from kind of the way he talks. I mean, one of the things he was asked, like, what he wanted out of his NBA career, and one of his goals was to get to the second contract. I don't think he's in danger of not getting a second NBA contract, but I don't think he's going to want a $8 million a year contract as his second contract. He wants the $20 million. He wants the $25 million a year second contract. So he's going to have to work hard and improve to get to that point. So I don't think that's going to happen.
Can I just say as a quick aside, it's sort of amazing. We talked about the expectations on him, have here and in multiple podcasts before. Even Suns fans who have been just firsthand witnesses to some of the worst top 5 picks of the last 10 years are still seemingly put off by that same concept where Marquise Chris didn't make it to his second contract. Dragan Bender didn't make it to his second contract, and it's not really looking great for Josh Jackson right now. And Alex Len is barely hanging out with the Hawks. He had an okay season last year for one of the worst teams in the league. All 4 of those players did not do exactly what Ayton is trying to do, which is basically get himself paid. Now, it means people look at it selfishly, but it means he wants to be good enough to get that money. And I don't think people are giving him enough credit. Again, 16 and 10 last season as an NBA player. No one even approached anything like that production out of our last 4 top 5 picks.
Yeah, I think, oh no, Caitlin's very upset about the Suns.
My daughter's very upset.
Absolutely.
She feels like Ayton is also being piled on.
Yeah. The problem is that's not the right answer, and it's just not. And I think when you break it down, you can say he's being honest, and then we can't fault him for that honesty. And the implications are he's still going to work hard and all of that. But like sometimes with him, it's so easy to say the right thing, and he just, I feel like so often does not say the right thing. Say, I want to bring this team to the playoffs. It's easy. Even if it's not true, just be honest. he's always giving bad answers. He will throw people under the bus sometimes. He frustrates me. I hope he grows up a little bit this year too. I'll throw that out there as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely times where I don't even care if that's part of the answer. If you want to have that more like outgoing, honest perspective, maybe even harsh sometimes, if that's part of I want to take this team to the playoffs and I want to win a title as soon as possible, maybe not right away because this team sucks, and I want to make my second contract because, who doesn't love money? If that was all part and parcel, I'd be like, okay, I maybe not love that one part's in there, but at least it's also with, I want my team to do well, I want my teammates to do well. I don't even think he meant it seriously all the way, but part of him did, and some fans are going to turn off that because of that same reason you mentioned. It's just kind of like, that's not a great look for our number one pick.
Well, and it bothers me, and I am a little old school when it comes to this stuff, but you got to be about winning and loyalty and camaraderie, and I want this team to come together and just play well. And you know what? If we don't make the playoffs, that's fine, but I really want to do my part to make sure that we're improving this brotherhood. Great answer. I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it for the money. And then here's my problem is it's okay, you're in it for the money. To me, if all you want to do is get paid, you will put in the minimum effort that it takes to secure that contract. If your goal is to win, you're going to go as hard as you can. I think that's an antiquated approach, but that's what I think when I hear that.
It's tough to say because, you could interpret second contract as I just want to be in this league for a long time. You can take it from a glass half full perspective. That's what that means.
Yeah.
And to make it in this league for a long time, you have to work really hard. You have to improve yourself. So, again, there's different ways to look at it. But he's also 19 years old, and maybe was trying to be cheeky, and it didn't come off well.
I don't want to go too far down the Ayton hole again, but I honestly struggle with this idea that his comments could be better, as Shaun mentioned, no question. But at the same time, it's he's one of those players that kind of makes things look effortless. And sometimes he really is not trying as hard as he could or should be. But there are other times where he can do things that very few people on this planet can do. And it looks easy. And then some people interpret that as a lack of effort on top of the times when he actually isn't trying. And it's not like Luka's playing his heart out every single moment of every single night. He had better results than Ayton in Season 1, but it's not like he's trying his ass off, and he's not a good defender either. And it kind of makes me wonder, just how much of this, not all of it certainly, is just because Ayton is black and Doncic is white.
Well, and then the other issue is Doncic, not really, I guess. I was going to say they're winning, and we're not. That's not really true, but they're doing better than we are.
Yeah.
It could come down to, and as stupid as this might be, Doncic's cheeks get red when he's flushed because he's running fast, and Ayton's don't. Doncic's hair is thinner, so you can see it flopping around a little bit more. So it looks like he's exerting more effort, when in reality they might be exerting the same amount. It's just perception.
And hilariously, there are some people who say that Ayton shouldn't ever be out of breath because he has to improve his conditioning, and it's well, then he is trying.
Yeah, that's what.
So that's how you can see he's running so hard that he's tired.
That's when someone's conditioned is when they never take deep breaths or get tired.
When they're a robot, then it's easy to tell. They're never ever tired.
Oh, anyway. That's LeBron's, but yeah.
Well, so worst case, probably 40 wins, I would say, was worst case.
Mm-hmm.
Right there with you, 20, 22. It doesn't matter. If they're anywhere between 15 and 24, it's going to be the same. It's
honestly
awful.
Anything even sub 30 is not great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
you can argue
truly.
We could win 29 and look like we're coming together and just not quite have it on certain nights. I don't even think that's good enough because the fan base has raised their expectations so much for reasons that are really unclear to me.
Well, here's my big.
And if we get blown out too, is the other thing too. Those we only have 29 wins, and a lot of the losses are huge blowouts.
Yeah. And we never stood a chance after the first quarter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would worry me and why I need us to win more than 30. I need us to win more than 30 games this year is if we win sub 30. Where is the hope for this roster that we're going to get better from here?
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete retooling. We're entering another half decade or more of rebuilding because, we're not going to sign a superstar. This is it. If this core can't get more than 30 wins, so then even now we're looking 2 years. Okay, maybe we up from 25 to 35. That 10-game jump. It still sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're still 3 years out of the playoffs in that scenario or more. And it's like we can't do it anymore. This team has to figure it out.
Yep. But okay, best case scenarios.
22 wins.
We are just set
Chris
up.
just thinks they're going to win 22.
I'm just really locked in on that prediction. I don't even know why I introduced the best worst concept because I was going to get the same answer to both.
Yeah.
How foolish.
I would say best case scenario we can have here is that Rubio becomes like a Steve Nash light, just not the shooting, but the leadership, the passing, the making everybody else better. Booker hits a very efficient number. Ayton ups the aggressiveness. Saric looks kind of like he did his first couple of years in Philadelphia again. And Bridges kind of makes that defensive leap. All in all, if all that happens, I think our best case scenario is probably just above 500.
Jesus Christ, Dave.
What?
Terrible. Oh, okay, actually, when you say it like that, it sounds really bad, but that's a little more than 500.
It means 42 wins.
Is right around where I'm at, actually, too.
Jesus Christ,
yeah.
Dave, I agree completely.
Yeah. I think the closer corollary, was that the word you used earlier? Corollary?
Not me.
Me? What?
Chris did.
Probably.
For Rubio, I would say would be Jason Kidd.
Fair.
On Dallas, where all he had to do was make his shooting a little better, and he did. It was serviceable, and they won a championship. So we're not going to be there. We don't have a Dirk, but I think if all those things click, like you said, I would say 44, 45. It might not be enough to get into the playoffs next year, but what a huge improvement.
Scary.
Yeah.
I think the fans will be very happy with a 42 win. Anything plus above 40, like the fans are gonna be like, "Oh my God, we're on the right track." We got the entire, pretty much the core coming back. Everybody coming back next year if we want to. Saric is really kind of the only one that we're kind of like, what are we gonna do with him because he's on a qualifying offer. But if we could just bring everybody back and be like, "All right, guys, let's run it back and have a better year next year."
I would love to say 50 wins. That's.
I've seen some folks doing it, and I'm like, you got to calm yourself down.
I just don't know how. It's more of a problem with not how good we are. It's an issue with how good everyone else is,
exactly.
And that's the problem.
I mean, 50 wins would have to be Booker making it like an MVP type leap.
Yeah.
Ayton making an all-star leap. Bridges being, in the conversation for defensive player of the year type of thing. Oubre being sixth man of the year type of thing to get to that level.
I don't know about if we did all that, then I might start saying actually we might be in like 52 to 55.
Here's the problem. 50 wins in the West last year was the Utah Jazz, the 5 seed.
Yeah.
Are you telling me we're going to be a 5 seed even at the best case scenario in this Western Conference?
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking like extreme. Everything is like every single player is a best case scenario. Then maybe, but God, in this Western Conference, how do you do it?
No. Well, let me just clarify, because I was being realistic. If every player turns out to be the best version of themselves this year, I think we're, top 4 in the West.
Mm-hmm.
At some point you just start. Okay, Lakers are stacked, Clippers are stacked. But let's go through it. If that happened, we could be better than Golden State. Although I think they might be better than people are giving them credit for.
I do.
I agree.
The Rockets, I don't think they're going to be there. They're going to make the playoffs, I think. I don't think they're going to necessarily be top 4.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet against it. Utah. I'm still not that sold on Utah. Call me crazy. I've never really liked Utah, which is funny because I actually really do like the Utah Jazz. I was thinking if I ever moved to Salt Lake City, I would love to be a Jazz fan. But this roster doesn't impress me that much, if that makes sense. Denver is going to be good. Again, they brought back basically their exact same team.
Yeah, which I think continuity is underrated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah.
The Trailblazers were a 3 seed last year. They went to the conference finals.
Yeah.
They brought in Whiteside as Nurkic insurance.
I don't know what to do about Portland anymore because I undersell them every year, and every year they're still in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm sick of them being good, and I'm sick of the Spurs being good.
Yeah, so I have to think they're going to take a dive. I'll put it out there. This will be the year. Portland.
Yeah, I can see that.
They reached their peak conference finals when they really probably didn't deserve to be there last year.
But I can't go so far as to pick them not to make the playoffs.
Oh, no, you can't.
But like 7 seed maybe. That's what I'm hoping for.
I would guess 6. Portland sounds like they'll be a 6 to me. So Sacramento, are they going to make the leap?
No.
I don't think so, but
I don't understand their offseason. People are like, oh, they got so much better. And I'm like, did they? Did they?
Dallas, I don't think improved that much. Who did Dallas get?
Porzingis.
Dallas got Porzingis.
Oh, yeah, right. But is
effectively.
Is he even going to play next year?
Yeah. He played in the preseason.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Looked like himself.
That's scary.
Okay. I don't know if they had the roster around those two, but I guess it's sort of the same problem with the Suns, right? Like 2 pretty decent young stars up top, but are they good enough, and are the surrounding cast? I mean, they're kind of similar in that sense. Because who's the third best player on Dallas?
Mr. S. Curry.
Yeah, S. Curry.
Yeah.
Maxi Kleber. Jalen Brunson.
Boban.
I don't know. Dwight Powell.
Yeah.
None of those exactly impressed me either. But the Suns have a similar problem. Like Rubio's better than most of the third best players on Dallas, but let's not pretend like Rubio's a world beater. If he was, we wouldn't have gotten him.
Exactly.
That's harsh, but it sucks. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to imagine us finishing higher than 10th.
Yeah, and it's sad. Like I could see a best case scenario where we win 40 games and we miss out on the playoffs by like 4 seeds, 3 seeds.
Yeah.
Where we're 11th in the West, and it's like, wait, how do we only improve 3 spots? But it's just because the West is that good.
Because to me, it's not a question of how good any of these teams above us are. It's a question of how bad they can be. Will the Spurs win less than 40 games this year? I don't think so.
I think they're too consistent.
And they're bringing back most of their core, and they get DeJounte Murray back this year. And, like, even if they weren't as good or if they were as good as last year, how do they win less than 40? How do the Thunder could take a fall? That's the one playoff team that might drop.
Done.
Yep. Yeah, Chris Paul by himself, basically.
They're caboosed.
Yeah.
But the Rockets, I don't know how good the Rockets are going to be. I think in the regular season they're going to be better than people give them credit. Like you said, the playoffs they'll struggle. But how do the Rockets not win 40 games?
On the athleticism alone, you would think they have to.
And just on James Harden alone.
Yeah.
He'll win 5 games on his own.
Well, and I would say that about Westbrook, too. I mean, Westbrook willed the Thunder to that year when he was by himself, he's a ball hog and he has a bunch of flaws, but, like, he will win you games.
Yeah. He will win you some games, and he will lose you a lot of games, too.
Yeah.
Anybody who wants 50 wins for the Suns, I'm sorry. I just feel like you're just being naive.
No, there's no way. I think 45 is
that would be a
unrealistic.
Huge season. That would be a phenomenal season.
If
we might still miss the playoffs.
If I can come upstairs and Chris has the Suns game on and I can watch it where half the games are, I won't even say entertaining because sometimes if we're competitive and we lose, I still felt like it was time well spent.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do that for most of the games next season, to me, that's a win.
Yeah.
If we can win half of the ones I watch, oh my God.
Yep.
Amazing.
And in the 2 games I watched of the preseason, it was a much more entertaining brand of basketball.
It really is.
Well, and what was the year, I think you said it, Dave, 2014, where
14.
we had, that we only won 48 games.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hugely entertaining season. So, like, it doesn't take, you don't have to be winning 55, 60 games to have a really thoroughly enjoyable season. 40, 45 is fine.
It's, I think, an enjoyable season. Yeah, it's coming down to the team likes each other. They play well together and can move the ball, and there's not that ball sticking that happens so frequently where it's like one guy goes on an 0 for 9 night and then tries to shoot his way out of it when somebody else is on fire. It's like if the ball's moving and people are recognizing the hot hand and enjoying playing with each other, that's where I think we're going to have a good season.
The more we're a cancer that we are still cutting out as for
we can't cure cancer.
When you tell me about the ball sticking, that's all I can think of is like, wow, what a detriment they were. Yeah. I hate them. They might be my most hated players in the entire league right now. And that's saying a lot.
You saw what Marcus did about a week ago, right?
The ball on top of the guy's head.
Yeah, he just slammed the ball into someone's forehead and got ejected for it in a preseason game.
Yeah, I hate him. I really do. I hope
why?
I hope their attitudes get them out of the league. Punch their ticket to.
Markeef's play is on his way to getting him out of the league, and again, we wouldn't have said this 4 years ago, but who would have imagined that? Because he looked like he was way better than Marcus, and now.
Yeah.
I will point out, the year before that 48-win team in 2014 that Dave mentions, we only won 25 games. And I don't remember
abysmal.
There was really no expectations, although we signed a good point guard, Dragic, who was coming back. There was no expectation for that season. I just don't know why there's so much expectation for this one. If it's just because there's even more losing piled on and people are just desperate to hope. We won 19 games last year. 19. We won 14 fewer games than any other team in the Western Conference, and people were thinking 45, 50 wins.
Well, so we did kind of best case and worst case.
Mm-hmm.
What is the threshold? I think we touched on it, where you will consider the season a success or failure. I think Dave was kind of leaning towards 30. Is that if they win 31 games next year, are we going to say, well, I'm really happy with that season?
I would say yes, it's very likely. If we're winning 31, that's going to be it's going to be like okay, there's a barometer. It's definitely on the low end, but I think that's kind of like, okay, we can at least have maybe something to build on.
No, and I'm saying, like, you personally, would you be happy with?
A lot of it is going to be dependent on how we get to that 30, I think. Yep. And that seems like a cop-out answer, but
no,
it really is. Like, if we're not getting blown out, if we're competitive in most games, and it's just the West is just that good, all right. But and then we get to 30, like, I think I'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Where just sheer number, I want to say like 33 to 35, but it's an optics thing. And if the team looks better at 30-ish, it's weird to have that hard number. But again, that 29 just looks not great.
Yep.
Even after a 19-win season with a 10-win improvement, that's not phenomenal. After you won 22 and 24 in the other seasons past here.
That's the hard part.
It's not like 30 and 52 is all of a sudden a phenomenal record, but I think that's just the bare minimum. But I think like 35 and 47 on the right style of play would be a really good season.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would dare to hope for 40. I don't even pretend like I think this team's going to make 500 this year.
Well, here's what's going to be nice about if we can get 35 to 40. We start building the culture of someone. We start building a culture, and then someone would say, oh, maybe I do kind of want to play there. I think Sacramento did a huge revamp of their culture. It didn't even take that. How many games did they win last year?
37?
Yeah.
37. I mean, that's still not a good record, but they, in a lot of ways, they transformed from the joke that was the Sacramento Kings to somewhat respectable club. It's like that.
Yeah, they handed us that torch.
Yep.
Yeah,
it took like
sure
a year
did.
and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And they still went and kings it up a little bit with one or two of their free agent signings and firing the coach that got them to that record last season.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the right move. I don't know. I don't think Luke Walton's that good. We'll see. But the point being, like, they quickly remade their reputation, and who knows, this season they could just as quickly flush it down the toilet.
Mm-hmm. Well, that actually leads me into a good question of realistically, who are we going to be better than this year in the West?
Kings.
I don't even know. We'll see.
Thunder.
Grizzlies, 100%.
Grizzlies.
I would bet any amount of money we're better than the Grizzlies.
Yep.
Who
I
else?
will go with you on
Who
that.
else? Who else? What are some other teams?
Other than the Grizzlies, I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, I think the Grizzlies.
Dallas.
I think the
Dallas.
Thunder's pretty safe. I think Oklahoma City's pretty safe. That's even if they keep Chris Paul. God forbid they trade him, because then what do they have?
Who else?
Dallas, I figure we're close to.
We're going to be better than Dallas. You got to hope. Who else?
I don't even. The Pelicans are intriguing to me. I think people are sleeping on them.
I think we're going to be better than the Pelicans.
I don't.
I think if we're anything but our worst case scenario, we're going to be better than the Pelicans. It's probably going to be close, and I think they're going to be promising. But again, that's assuming we're going to win in that 35 to 40 game range. If we
You've never
don't,
been on the Zion train.
I think he's going to be great. It's his first year.
My reach of a prediction would be that the Pelicans make the playoffs in this West.
I would agree with you on that.
No
I think their team around them is good.
So this is what I had. This is 5 teams so far. Keep going. What are some other teams?
Timberwolves are probably going to be stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Timberwolves. I think we're going to be better than Timberwolves.
Probably. Andrew Wiggins is a disaster.
Well, we're at the 9 seed right now, Shaun. if you got 6 teams that we're better than.
You know what? But those are the 6. Because if we're 9, I just don't see any way we're better than any of the 8 before us, barring any injuries.
That's sort of the issue, right? Like
San Antonio,
Warriors,
Portland,
Nuggets,
Warriors, Clippers,
Blazers,
Lakers,
Rockets, Jazz, Spurs, Clippers, and probably Lakers. That's 8.
That's
Those all seem like pretty safe no's to me.
Yeah, I can't. I
so
mean,
then
I
it
can't
has to
do
be
it.
those 6, yeah.
But if we're the 9 seed this year, could you guys imagine? As much as it's disappointing, the 9 doesn't have the stigma that it used to, where you're just stuck in this purgatory.
And you have like a 1% chance of the number 1 pick now from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like a 0.1.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's that, but then there's also the idea of like it's less rewarding to be worse, like kind of a mix of those two things.
Well, and I think like the West last year, if we were the 9 seed, we still wouldn't be close to the 8.
Right.
Yeah, there was that big gap, and I think it would be similar this year where you could maybe be like 42 wins and eke out the 9 seed, but you're probably missing the playoffs by 6 or 7 games, so it doesn't really hurt.
But the thing is, you're right now in the 9 seed with the West, because I'm just rolling with this. Suns is the 9 seed.
Sure.
You know, you're primed for some of these teams starting to fall off. And some of them are going to be there. The Rockets, if they have another disappointing season, are they going to blow it up? Yeah, maybe. San Antonio, they have to decline at some point. They have a bunch of still like aging players. I mean, it is going to happen. It's taken a long time, but it's happened in the past, and it's going to happen again.
I swear to God.
I mean, what are some other like Golden State? They're still good. They're not going to be good forever.
Curry's 31.
Yeah, that's scary.
Steph Curry is 31 years old.
That's a little scary.
Yeah.
Now, he's not going anywhere, but still, the fact remains that
Clay is 30, right?
Outside of Steph and Clay's next contract, what happens then?
Yeah.
The Lakers, I think, few years out. I mean, LeBron, I will never discount him. He's too much of a freak, but he knows. I mean, he's planning for exiting out. Like he knows it's going to happen soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anthony Davis is the team. Yeah, Anthony Davis is the team, and he's proven he's one of the best players in the world, one of the best of all time, probably. But is that roster with the Lakers so different than the one he had with the Pelicans that he could never do anything with? Probably not.
Well, I mean, he's got LeBron. That's the difference. But after that,
Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, right. So like this year, the Lakers are going to be a contender for sure. But I'm saying the Suns can position themselves with a youngish core to start to capitalize once these teams start to fall off.
I mean,
if we can get there, if we're still a bottom, that's the thing. If we're still a bottom dweller and we're rebuilding as all these other teams are rebuilding, who frankly I have more confidence in to do it faster, that is going to kill me.
I mean, we could have max free agent space in that 2020 offseason, or 2021 rather, because this offseason looks like garbage.
Yeah.
Straight garbage. We could have max cap space for a free agent that year. Now, obviously, our track record of free agents isn't great, but if we're building the right culture and we're moving in the right direction, I think all bets are off. And one of the reasons is, like, who wouldn't want to play with Booker and Ayton if they really are as good as they could be? Mm-hmm. And you're right, Shaun, because sea change happens in the NBA so quickly now because everybody's on a 3 or a 4 year deal.
Yeah.
There are no 8, 10, 12-year contracts like in the NFL or the NHL where you can lock a player up for pretty much his whole career. Maybe you end up doing that over the course of 3 contracts, but here, I mean, look how quickly the landscape changed just this past offseason.
But the culture's so important, and you brought that up. Like, the culture is why Golden State is going to continue to be good for many years. Is because their guys are like, yeah, except for Durant, who I don't really like, and it's no secret to you guys, that whole team is like, we're here. You have the contract for me to sign? Here we go. And that's a culture thing. And if we can start to build something that even approaches that, where a player's like, yeah, of course I'm going to sign here. I love this team. I love these guys. Why would I want to go somewhere else? It's like, I love that.
And I'm hoping signs like us offering Booker his max contract when it might have been salary cap-wise more advantageous to wait a year is going to help us get some credence in that. Kelly Oubre wanting to be here and kind of building some excitement might build that up.
Yeah.
Monty Williams picking us over the Lakers. That's something we haven't even mentioned yet on this. I mean, that was a big deal at the time, and I'm hoping that type of thing is what kind of starts to change the narrative on here. And Robert Sarver just backing the fuck off.
Yeah.
And just not. I would love if we don't hear from Sarver at all this year. Like, never hear anything about him this year. That'd be the best.
Yep. James Jones seems to be player friendly, and I'd like to think, in some small way. Please tell me that all the stuff we did with like trading for people and waiving them, a la Tyson Chandler or anybody else over the last couple of years, means something These players are going, well, their organization's been a little all over the map, but they do seem to do right by their players. So, like, I'm going to factor that into my calculus when I make a decision here. I'd like to hope so, because otherwise Tyson Chandler did nothing for us.
Here, Shaq Kobe 2.0.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
When it comes to culture, though, I think things like this training facility that's being built in Arcadia and Phoenix is a huge deal.
Yeah.
I heard something that said that there's literally going to be like living quarters at that training facility. So when rookies come in, or maybe 10-day contract guys, or people who just got traded, have a place to stay other than the hotel across the street from the arena. Because it's hard. Like, if you're a rookie on a 10-day contract, or you just got traded here, like, what do you do for a living? Like, all your stuff is somewhere else. Like, you have a place that, all right, at least I know where I'm sleeping tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, rookies are making a couple $1 million, but that's not how they start going into the first season.
No.
So,
and it's a tough adjustment.
So we didn't want to do this, but I'm gonna ask for it. We've talked about best case. We talked about worst case. Before we wrap up, I want your estimates on what you actually think will happen this year.
34.
Okay, Dave.
35.
I'm gonna go up 36.
Hell yeah!
All right.
there.
When it's like 35, are we all going to be correct, or is Dave just going to end zone dance on us because he was exactly right?
He's going to
Spike
end zone
both their
dance
heads
on
like a
us.
football.
We're going to owe him a thing. But I find myself getting excited to like go to a game this year. Maybe we can even do more than one, guys.
What?
Whoa. Because, again, like you said, even if they're losing, but it's like a fun style to watch, I'll watch that. That's fine.
Yeah. And we can avoid the marquee matchups because I'm not there to watch the Lakers or the Warriors. Like, it's cool to see those teams, but if the Suns are halfway decent, I'll watch them play the Grizzlies. I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
For paying half price for the exact same tickets, I'd love to watch a Grizzlies Suns game.
We should actually talk about, have they released it? They have, right?
Yeah, we have the
schedules are
schedule.
out.
We can look at it.
We're going to talk about this
year.
after the show. Yeah, we're not going to do it on air.
Because I have one other fun fact of Sun trivia I'm going to put on you, but the listeners don't care. It's way too obscure. So that's our predictions.
We need it for history.
All right, fine. I'll do
History
it real quick.
Really quick.
Let me just pull up this
If
roster
anyone
real
is still listening, I think that they're someone who would find whatever stat you're going to have, at least somewhat interesting.
At this point, we've had the recording shut down. My daughter come in twice begging for water.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, everything that could have fallen apart has. All right, this is going to be difficult because you're going to have to remember this roster, but who had the most win shares on the 2015-2016 Phoenix Suns? I know win shares is an obscure stat, but just think of it basically as this. By one metric, who was the best player on the 2015-2016 Phoenix Suns? And you can ask me if a player was or was not on that roster and start from there, but like...
I am going to guess...
Because I saw this by mistake just pulling up past seasons, and I was mind-boggled.
Well, then, I mean, my only guess would be someone like a Bledsoe or something. So, I have no way.
That's almost too obvious.
I'll read you the roster of meaningful players because it's not like some obscure thing. Win shares is a cumulative stat, so it can't be somebody who played one game. I'll give you the roster. You guys pick one. We'll see how you do. Ready?
Right.
Eric Bledsoe, Devin Booker. These are alphabetical by last name. So Eric Bledsoe, Devin Booker. Chase Budinger played in that team briefly, apparently.
Oh, disgusting.
But not him, obviously. Tyson Chandler, Archie Goodwin, Chris Humphreys, Brandon Knight, Alex Len, John Lure, Markieff Morris, Mirza Teletovic, P.J. Tucker, T.J. Warren, Alan Williams. Those are the only people I can see on this list that contributed anything meaningful over the course of the season.
The answer is Mirza.
Is it? I was going to guess Teletovic.
It is Mirza Teletovic.
But that's not a good stat.
3.8 win shares that season, the highest of anybody on that roster.
And at least 500 hair fixings after he made a three.
Mirza Teletovic. Now, win shares is a pretty offensively oriented stat, but still.
I did not remember that he was on our team until you mentioned that
I
roster.
didn't remember.
Yeah.
Chris Humphreys was on this team?
Yeah, for like 10 games, I think, that season. It wasn't long.
The worst.
Yeah, it's not great. I also look at our bar graph of that season, and there's so many giant red losses. It's probably true of the last 4 seasons, but it hurts my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
So if we seem optimistic, it's not only because the team is going to be better, because it absolutely is, or we're going to be heartbroken, but because this is the shit we're dealing with. The bar cannot be any lower.
You know what is so upsetting to me is the Suns are such a big part of my identity. It's so important to me. Maisie, again, it's been 6 years now. she probably almost wouldn't have any clue because I don't watch the games. I don't. Why would I? I follow them usually, like on my phone, but I'm like, oh yeah, we're down by 30. I'm not gonna like take my time to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm getting to the point where my kids are starting to recognize who's winning and who's losing, and it's not just yay, Daddy likes the Suns. I'm gonna cheer for the Suns too. They're gonna be like, wow, the Suns are losing again.
Yeah.
Why are you watching, Dad?
Yeah. Stop wasting time and put on that show with the animal detectives.
I mean, like us going to bars, or like sports bars, and watching the games. Like that doesn't have. Like she has no clue. We used to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Playoffs, like it used to be a big deal. You go, you get a good table. The atmosphere is electric, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What playoffs?
Hasn't happened.
What are playoffs?
I have no idea.
Playoffs. Don't talk about playoffs.
We've had to watch other teams play the last few years in the playoffs. That's our big like get together.
We've had a
'Cause we
yearly
have-
date to watch the finals
Yeah, because we have nothing.
of other teams.
And it's been bad.
Yeah.
Every game we've happened to watch has been almost unilaterally terrible.
Yep.
So, anyways,
All right.
We threw in a couple other fun facts of how bad we are. So
Yep.
I hope you appreciated that.
Suns preview, 34, 35, 36 wins.
36 is way too, all of us. That's way
It
too
might be too high.
optimistic, but
But
we gotta hope.
we
right?
have to hope. That's my head battling heart there, because honestly, I'd probably, if I had to bet money on it, pick like 31.
Yeah.
But
I think the over-under is 28, which I think is actually
it's too low.
yeah. So it just seems like a good over bet.
But I would have thought that last year. It was like
Me too.
24 or 25
Yeah.
last year, and I would have thought that was a slam dunk. Like, we might not win 30, but we have to win like 28, and we won 19. We went down.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
Vegas knows. Vegas usually knows.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the end of this episode. Stay tuned for our inevitable heartbreak when the season actually starts. In between episodes, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com, on social media at Team Objection. You can follow us, but we don't give a fuck. It's objectionnetwork@gmail.com or youtube.com/objectionnetwork. Our Trolls of Cold Steel playthrough starts on Tuesday, 5 days from when this airs. See you next time.